And who are you doing it with?
A couple of us from our cohort formed kind of like a little group. So it'll be my business because it's a service disabled veteran set aside, which I am.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got Mr. John Cherry. I don't know if you
Mm-hmm.
remember him, Miss Mary
Yes.
Joy.
Mm-hmm.
We're all working on it together.
Okay. All right. Very good. And what are you finding as part of this learning process?
So I feel like the biggest thing we tried to go after National Guard lodging contract, and I think the city was just too small, and they already had partnerships with other federal contracting businesses, so that was a learning curve. And then just the financing piece, that's definitely something that we're learning as we go along this process.
Okay, very good. That's why I felt it in my spirit. We needed to have this conversation with everyone.
Absolutely, it's right on time.
I am going to also stream this through Facebook because I just feel like it's an important topic, and I want everyone to really have a clear understanding of what you're getting into and making sure that you don't default on these contracts. So it's just important that we just have this real talk because nobody really wants to talk about it, but we have to talk about it because it's all about getting our finances in order.
They changed the name.
Getting our finances in order. If you all give me just a couple of moments. Hello, GPI family. I'm going to stream this. How y'all doing?
Hey, Miss Paula.
Good.
Yeah,
Well, thanks.
Y'all doing good?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Y'all ready for the holidays?
Ready to slow down, yes, and take it easy.
All right. Look, why isn't this happening for me now? Hold on. While we're in here and while I'm trying to finagle this live Facebook, can you all begin to go around and introduce yourself and give us your background, where you're located, because it's all about us collaborating, understanding who's in the house and how we can work together. So, Ms. Blackwell, can you start? Where you located?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. My name is Atia Blackwell, owner of Government Alliance Solutions. We are located in Northwest Florida.
And what's your background primarily?
I am a Army veteran, and I currently am a broker associate with Compass.
Okay. And you have your service disabled veteran certification?
Yes, we are a service disabled veteran business.
And what areas of services are you offering?
So our primary services are management and consulting, and we specialize in transportation.
Okay. All right. Somebody else want to jump in?
Good evening, Ms. Paula. Good evening to everyone. My name is Bridget Lewis. I'm the CEO of Lewis Consulting Partners out of Atlanta. My background is project management, IT project management, technical project management, and that's what I specialize in my business. My primary niche is management consulting, but like I said before, I specialize in software development, leading teams, coaching, training, and professional development.
Look at y'all. That's what I'm talking about. You see, the wealth that we have in here. All right. One next person, please. Somebody jump in.
Hello, Miss Paula. Hello, everyone. My name is Bridget Brackens, with CEO of Premier Choice Management Group. My name tag shows Carl B. Miss Paula, I see you looking.
She using my laptop.
I'm trying to figure out how to get my Facebook live stream. So let me go off camera.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. My primary NAICS code is project management. My background, construction management. I have some event planning background, and I'm in real estate.
Okay.
So like property management. And I'm located in Los Angeles.
Okay. You're in Los Angeles?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Which cohort did you complete?
I'm in August.
Okay,
So
you're
we'll
in
have our class
August.
tomorrow. Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, somebody else jump in?
Hi, yes, this is Kim.
Hi, Kim. There we go. Hi, Kim.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, introduce yourself.
Hey, I am Kim Burrows. I am a general contractor located in Georgia, and I was a part of the 2023, I think it was the May cohort.
Okay. All right. I think I got my Facebook, so I can stop killing time right now and spend this time in gaining some more knowledge. Again, I felt it was important. It was important that we talk about the after the fact. We want to encourage everyone to go after and win contracts, but there is a big gap in making sure you understand what you're getting into and how you're going to finance that contract. And the reason I brought it up because Tansy and I, Tansy is a former colleague of mine who worked with me at SBA, started talking about this. And what I realized during our conversation, a lot of times you just don't know what you don't know. You don't even know that you need to know or need to ask that question. So I asked her if she would please join me this evening so that we could partake and have a real talk about this financing based on her 34 years servicing small businesses at the at SBA, but specifically within the 8A program, because I know as an 8A participant in that first business, I was doing a lot of things that was wrong, but I didn't find out until after the fact. So Tansy, are you online? I told her she didn't have to dress up or show her face, so we're good. Tansy, can you unmute yourself? Let me see.
Hello, everyone. I'm so
Tan-
excited to be here with Miss Paula tonight to be able to just kind of give you all some basic general information on some of the concerns that we have and or things that we talked about that maybe some of you may be interested in knowing prior to even getting a.
You're done, they're finished. She saw stuff your bathroom and your bedroom too.
I muted him. Go ahead.
Can you
I muted him.
Okay. And we thought it was important tonight that you all be a part of the conversation actually that we were having. Now, as Ms. Paula stated, I am a retiree of the federal government Small Business Administration. I had 34 years plus prior to my exiting from the agency. But what I will say is many things changed over the tenure while I was there, from the bare fact of the BOSs, which are the business opportunity specialists, actually identifying contracts for the small business companies that were participating in the program, not only finding those contracts, which caused and required the BOSs to develop a relationship with the contracting department and procurement department. But during that time, I realized in the different changes that many of the small businesses were not aware of either the changes that had taken place, or in many cases did not know what their requirements were as a subcontractor to the SBA on federal contracts.
Yeah, let's back up just a little bit, because the 8A program is what she's specifically referring to. And that is the program that we encourage minority-owned businesses to become a part of. And it's geared as a business development program. So that's the only program that you're going to be assigned a person like Tansy and I, and we were called your business opportunity specialist. And can you demystify or clarify what our roles were in that program? Because people always felt like our position, we were to find them a contract. That was not our position as your assigned specialist. Could you elaborate a little more, Ms. Tansy?
Yes, Ms. Paula. So as she has already said, and I want to say it again, I remember in my training, I always would, after we did whatever we did to introduce everyone and get the ball rolling in the training, I always started out by saying, it's a myth. Just as the young man on the television say SBA small business loans will give you a grant, well, it's a myth that SBA 8A business development program will give you or find you an 8A contract, or better yet, not even an 8A contract, because they have expanded the responsibilities over into the capacity of assisting those small business firms with obtaining other work outside of the federal government as well. But the main thing that we are doing is developing your firm in the areas that you tell the SBA in your business plan where you need to be developed. If you don't tell us where you feel that you need the help, many times you'll fall short because you haven't elaborated or told anybody what it is that you are trying to do in doing the 9-year tenure of that program.
Can I stop you 1 second there?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, sometimes you don't even know what you don't know. That's why I titled that. So how are you expecting small businesses to map out those 9 years if you're just brand new? You've got a little business, I've applied, I got my certification, but that's all that I have. And I don't really have any idea of what I need for the 9 years.
So the first thing you would do as a BOS, and these were my this was my way of educating, training, and equipping my firms to be able to successfully complete the program, hopefully early. That's not a bad thing, but many people think it's a bad thing. If you graduate early, that means that you have accomplished and achieved all of those things in your business plan, and SBA doesn't feel that you need their help anymore. So I take my company from the beginning, and they have an orientation. And in that orientation, there's a checklist that I would go through to prepare that company in knowing what it is that I am here to help you with and how I can provide it to you, and to inform you that there are some things that I don't do personally, but SBA has partners that they work with that I will link you to, and in hopes that you will return back to me and tell me the results of those. Therefore, if it's not favorable, that I could try to do something else to make it work. But when it comes also to the training, one of my requirements is that we sit together and we go over 13 CFR Part 124, which applies only to those firms that are in the 8A program. Now, be mindful that some of these participants in the 8A program could have other certifications outside of the 8A program. So we may have to go over some of the regulations that maybe apply to size, keeping them informed on size, keeping them informed on things you do and do not do during your tenure in the program. What is expected of you on performance of federal contracting, how critical it is of you to have financial support prior to being awarded an 8A contract.
Okay, hold up right there.
Okay.
That is it.
Okay.
The financial support. And even before you get into the program, again, I'm always encouraging everyone, again, to get your feet wet, but also understanding getting your feet wet, meaning you make sure you have your financing aligned. And what does that really look like?
So,
So
in understanding what that looks like, not only should you have adequate working capital in case you get this contract or a contract, what in your business plan, you're telling the government, this is the support amount that I'm asking you for. So if I'm asking you for $250,000 worth of 8A contract support, then I would expect you to have financial line of credit, or some working capital in the company, or being able to show me that you have some support maybe from partners as to how you can support a contract of that magnitude. If you could not do that, then that will be the first thing that I'm going to be working with you to try to establish relationships with either your current banker, or we're going to go to SBA's link to find out who are their bankers that they are working with for the different types of loan programs that they have, so that we will have you ready to support financially that contract and pay your employees on time.
Well, what if it's just a small contract?
What is a small contract?
Again, yeah, I said, what if it's just a small contract? You still, I guess I'm trying to get people to understand as well, outside of the 8A program, that you still, just like any other thing that you do, you're still going to have to provide the upfront costs.
Yes, ma'am.
And you and I had that conversation this morning where I was saying, well, I don't think that's right for the government to put that expense on a small business. You're pretty much carrying the government, but you made me look at it differently. She said, and what you said was, well, it's like any other vendor. If you personally hire someone, you're not going to pay them that money up front. You're right. So I think we all have to be strategic in understanding what types of contracts we're going to go after, and how we go, and how we go about getting them financed. Because that's very important. You've got to be able to finance it at least for a month.
So, Ms. Paula, I want to also throw in there, since we're not only talking about 8A, I
Mhm.
can say for commercial and other, state, city, county, other types of contracts, those agencies, in some cases, not federal, they will do advance payments, but not
Mhm.
federal. On a
Mm.
federal or 8A contract, there will not be any advance payments. But that possibility can be addressed at the time that you are looking to do that work. So whoever you're speaking with and developing that relationship with, you
Mhm.
might want to bring that up during your conversation.
Mhm.
And maybe you don't know, you're not saying you don't have the money, but you may want to bring up something like, what if this contract is modified and it's increased to a magnitude that I financially can't handle? What do we do in that case?
Hold up, you jumped ahead. That's after you won the contract, because again, when you win it, you've budgeted or gotten it financed for a certain amount.
Correct.
But the agency can come back in and say, we need this additional work and we want to modify this contract for another $1 million. So that means you still have to be able to finance that $1 million. So can you not sign off on that modification if you can't afford it?
So what you would do when you're dealing with, I can speak directly to, again, the 8A contract. If the agency is modding a contract, the first thing is they must give you a 30-day notice of that modification. That gives you time to speak with them, to say what, yes, I can, yes, I'm interested, no, I'm not interested, why you're not interested, what's the best course that we can take so that I don't default on this contract. So, depending on what this amount of that contract, if that contract goes over 25%, cause that contract amount to increase by 25%, that is considered a new contract. But if you don't know any better, that contracting officer, contract specialist might modify the contract, and you go ahead and proceed on and don't realize that, hey, I'm actually performing on a new contract and I just put myself in a hole. So you want to keep that in mind first. Also, to know that there are multiple types of modifications. And what I encourage you to do is to review the various types, but I'd like to address two of them. The main two are either a unilateral or a bilateral. If it's a unilateral, normally the agencies just do it and notify you and it's done. That's what usually one of like administrative change orders, things like that. But when you're dealing with a bilateral, you as the contractor have to agree to that change. Again, if you do not sign that contract, that modification, you need to first of all reach out to the representative that you're working with at SBA. And if it's not an SBA contract, you can reach out, number one, to the PCR, notify the PCR that this contract is really causing you to be affected in a manner that it can negatively impact your company, and you want to know.
Yeah, that's the procurement center representative. That's the SBA employee that you work with. I just wanted to get the acronym out there.
Acronyms.
Yeah, we start talking government language and get ahead.
So you want to make sure that that PCR can be an advocate for you, along with your business opportunity specialist, and trying to see how you all can resolve that problem and not cause you much hardship on that contract. Because they're not going to tell you, but they can replace another contractor and do a T for C. They can just simply end your contract, give you a good rating and everything on your performance, and start a new contract. So the goal of the program for that particular case is not to make the small business look bad, but to develop that company in a manner where they will at some point be able to perform successfully on a contract of that magnitude and have the financial support. The modifications, if you'd like to review that information on any contracts, not just 8A, is in Part 43. That's FAR, Federal Acquisition Regulations, Part 43.
Okay, and that is stating what I'm typing in the chat. Part
Part 43.
And that covers what again?
Contract modifications.
And what has to occur on the government side and what you're responsible for as a contractor?
Yes, ma'am. And it also on those modifications, it's not an absolute. And when I say absolute, it's not in concrete that a mod has to be signed off on. It's just there has to be an agreement reached upon you and the agency. You can't just walk away and say, I'm not going to sign, I'm not going to do it, I can't do it, because they will default you.
Okay, let's say I want to, I'm backing up and talking a little bit more about these small business set aside. Again, it's a gamble, it's a fishnet, and you're trying to build relationships. So I'm throwing out a whole fishnet, not really targeting anyone, and I win. I think I have the financing, but I don't. What would your recommendation be if you were awarded a contract and not necessarily have your I's and T's crossed?
Well, if it's in the area of financing, you have actually 15 days from the date that the contract is awarded to notify that procuring agency of the issues or concerns that you may have. That's the first thing you need to know. You do have that right. The second thing is, of course, I'm going to try to attempt to get financing through those lending institutions that I have relationships with. If I can't do that, my next thing is going to be contacting one of the SBA preferred lenders to see if maybe I qualify for some of the SBA loans. If that doesn't work, I see Miss Paula shaking her head, so I think she's wanting me to.
Well, I think that's too late. You know what I mean? I think all of that, I'm stating that because I think all of that needs to be happening up front before you even get to that stage.
It should be happening up front, but the case was presented that you got the contract and it's kind of after the fact. So
no, I haven't signed off on it. Do I have the right to? Yeah, okay, I haven't signed off on it. I want it. I'm excited, but I don't really have the financing, and I wasn't expecting to get the award. I just threw a fishnet out there.
Okay, so I still include those things that I've said, but then you also have an opportunity of how you can have that contract awarded. You got joint ventures. So when in a joint venture, you got a partner that can help to support the financing of the contract. You have subcontractors. Maybe you're going to use a subcontractor. You can have an agreement with the subcontractor that, hey, I'll pay you after I get paid, but not maybe 30 days. I might have to pay you 60 days, you know? Those are other means that you can keep in place. But definitely you have to let that contracting department know. If you cannot, don't wait till the last minute to let them know, hey, I'm in a bind. Because now you're putting, you know, they're not feeling very happy now. And the time that they took to work with you, or even to just select you, because you don't even know what took place in the back before
Mhm.
you found out that you got the contract. So in some cases, they are willing to work with you, even to the degree of recommending a joint venturing partner or a
Mhm.
subcontractor.
Yeah, yeah, and the agency also, if I decline to accept that, they'll just go to the next one because they're gonna choose at least three top ones.
And that's one
Um,
of the reasons why it's so important that you talk to that person, because what if they have to go to that second person?
Mm.
You still want to know that you feel good and you have explained your situation, and your
Yes.
opportunities for future contracts are still, those doors are still open.
Yes, 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 yes. We have one quick question from Danielle. Danielle, can you unmute yourself?
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
So the question that I have is, well, I guess twofold. What amount, for example, would we be financing? Is it the amount that we're paying the subcontractor, or like you said, our employees to get the job done? And is that something that we should be considering, like pretty much when we're bidding? Like if this is my bid number and I have to pay, contractor, I have to pay employees, I need to make sure that I can afford to pay them this number for the 60-day period.
It's gonna vary based on those contracts, and the type of contracts. If you're hiring employees, right, that let's say it's just for one full-time position, you have to be able to carry that employee's salary for at least 2 months. So you need to make sure that you have enough to cover that's those salaries and expenses associated with that employee. If it's a subcontractor, you can negotiate. And for me, and that's what Tansy was talking about earlier. When I was in the first business, I was able to negotiate an advance payment, which helped me with my cash flow. But my biggest and weakest point was the cash flow. And I think that's all small business. I was no different than anyone else. That's what tied me into a factoring company, a contract. And what I didn't realize, which Tansy just informed me this morning, in that first business, I got a SBA 7A loan, and that was for $150,000. $150,000 on a $3 million contract, that's just like water. So we ended up factoring, meaning assigning our contracts to a third party, which would be the factoring company, in order to get it financed. And if you're in the 8A program, hear me now, y'all, the 8A participants, you have got to get everything approved. I did not, fortunately, they did not catch me, Tansy, because she's right. When you're awarded a contract in the 8A program, that contract is SBA's. People get that confused. That is not your contract. You are in essence subcontracting to SBA. So everything that you do as it relates to that contract has to be approved. And Tansy told me I would have gotten kicked out had somebody caught that.
Right. So basically what Ms. Paula just said is SBA is the prime contractor and you are the sub to SBA. So if you are a sub to the prime, everything that takes place on that contract, that prime needs to know. And there are certain things in that contract, even if SBA has delegated their authority, which many of the agencies under the Memorandum of Understanding have agreed with SBA that they take pretty much charge of that contract. And the only thing happens is SBA signs off on it. But even though that they are have the authority now. SBA still have to be notified, and SBA still have to have a copy of all of the changes to the contract. They still have to review certain mods and sign off on them, even though they've delegated that authority to the agency. And if you don't do this, then they can actually come in and say, stop, this contract cannot be performed anymore. Or they can say the contract is in violation of FAR clause or SBA clause XYZ, even to the degree of a simple subcontractor. If you started out and told that agency you are using this subcontractor and you change and don't notify anyone, you're in violation of the contract.
Interesting. Are y'all catching that? Are y'all receiving this?
And payments to your
Yes.
subcontractor, if you're not paying your subcontractor and SBA finds out about that, again, they could stop that contract. Now they're going to, first of all, send you to send the person that's complaining to the contracting officer. But the contracting officer is going to reach out to SBA. Once SBA check it out and find out that it's okay and concur with the agency, somebody's going to stop the contract.
We have one quick question in here. Thank you, Tansy. Kaleem asked, how would SBA look if you go out and get an investor to cover the cost for expenses?
So that will be an agreement that you will be putting together with whoever that investor is, right? So if that investor say, you have to pay me back XY amount within this amount of time at an interest rate of whatever, that's a formal agreement that binds you to that person. So now SBA has to know what agreements you have out there that bind your company, because that agreement could say, if you don't pay me, now what happens after that, which could now interfere with your eligibility in the 8A program.
Which is interesting because I get that often. People will approach me and say, and tell me, if you help me get a contract, I'll give you a percentage of it. Can you clarify the rules and regulations on that? Because sometimes I'm confused with that. I know with the 8A, you cannot just
right.
get
So
any money.
under the 8A program, under the Hub Zone, any of SBA's programs, how about that? Any of SBA's programs, you cannot pay a person, an individual, a certain percentage of that contract, period. Now, this is how you can overcome that. If they are an employee and they found that contract and say they are your business development person, they can get a commission off of that. So now you're not paying them a percentage of the contract, you're just paying a commission. And the commission in your manual or for all employees or however you have it written up, you will be able to justify the amount that you just paid that company, which could very well be whatever that percentage is that they asked for.
And you get that a lot in this space. Did you find that working with a lot of your 8A firms, that you got a lot of people coming out there really trying to hustle these firms, and they're on their payrolls for a year and they never really even get any contracts?
I did encounter both. Some, it actually caused hardship to the company because now they're taking all of their money on future contracts because that one might have fell through, so it could affect them that way. And then I've had some positive responses where maybe they put in place at that agreement, maybe it was that mental protege agreement, or even that, like I said earlier, joint venture agreement. So in that case, it could be justified. And that's what I try to encourage them to do that more than, trying to put the person on payroll to justify it. Because usually what you do, you change that so regularly. And you don't want to find yourself, oh, I forgot what I did. And then the next thing you know, you're in an audit and you can't remember what actually happened, why you paid that person that amount. But I also want to throw out there to you, there are consultants out there also that say, if I find you a contract, I want X amount percentage of that contract. You can't do that either. Not on a government contract. And that's whether it's 8A or any other. If it's federal, you cannot sell anything of that federal contract to anybody else.
And that's pretty common, believe it or not. You'll get a lot of that. And for me, I don't want, that's your money. And I get approached, even me, somebody will approach me and say, if you help me get the contract, I'll give it. No, that's your money. But that you could hire me as a consultant, which now negates a percentage of the contract. Bridget had a question. You raised your hand, Bridget. What was your question?
Thank you, Tanzi, for joining us. It's been really a great conversation. So I want to go back to the subcontractor, because sometimes subcontractors fail for whatever reason. They can't do the work. Would it be a good practice to have an addendum of contingency subcontractors, or bake that into, how would you protect yourself against a subcontractor not coming through for you?
I never thought about that, Ms. Lewis, but that's wonderful if you got a contingency, because now you got a backup plan. It's not necessary that you let the agencies know it, but yes, I think that's great, because what happens if you don't have a backup plan, the agency don't care that the subcontractor left or the subcontractor couldn't perform.
But you have to notify the agency, though, that you're switching subcontractors.
Yes, ma'am.
So as long as you let them know first, it's okay.
Yeah, you got to let them know before you bring anybody else aboard.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Paula, can I ask one question? There was Ms. Carolyn. She said the 15-day, is that for any contract with the federal? Which 15-day are you referring to? The notice of an
contract award
or the contract award?
The contract award.
Ask the question for me one more time.
Okay, earlier when you were talking about you had 4 criteria. You were talking about awarded a contract, but don't have the financing. What should be done? And you listed three things. Number one, you said you have 15 days from the award date to inform the procurement office.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that's what you were saying. So that 15-day, if you look in any contract that you get, there's a notice to proceed. And that notice to proceed is 15 days after the award. So you're not doing anything when you first get that contract. You got 15 days. So if something happens that you think is going to affect you, which will be that lack of financing, within those 15 days, you should be notifying that agency to see if they can go to the next person. Or if it's a small, other than an 8A award, do they have advance payment? So that 15-day I was talking about is after the notice, within the time of the notice to proceed with the action, with the work, with the performance.
And is that specifically for 8A, or is that with any federal award?
That's all federal awards. Whatever that notice to proceed is, within that time period is when you need to be talking to them. And it will vary, but most federal contracts is 15 days.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I listed about the Prompt Payment Act. That small, it's the Prompt Payment Act the same as the Small Business Fast Pay Act, or are those two different laws?
They are different. They mean similar things, but the Prompt Payment Act was an act put in place to make sure that the government, they really was trying to help the small businesses. Let's make sure if we're getting good performance, that we have our contractors paid so that in a timely manner, so they don't have hardship. That's what that was all about. So that time frame under the Prompt Payment Act was 30 days from the date that they received a complete and acceptable invoice. Now, if you go to the regulations, and I think that's for 232-25, that's it. 232-25, it'll talk about acquisitions and the payment itself. Then you got 52-232, and I think that one's 27, which deals specifically with construction contracts. And that's where that Prompt Payment Act really came in, more so on that construction issue. So after the agency receives a completed and acceptable invoice, or they've received their goods and service, because that contracting officer can make a waiver to the payment if they see that, it could be really causing you hardship. And then they'll put somebody hopefully with you to help you to get that invoice corrected. But don't count on that, okay? That's rare to none that happens, but it has happened before. And when you look in the regulations, you're not going to see acceptable and completed. All you're going to see, I think it just says, is after receiving an invoice. So you don't know that it has to be correct and completed and acceptable.
Correct. And let's say I submitted, and that happened to me in that first business, where my numbers wasn't right, adding up right. Because again, I express and keep emphasizing the importance of that accounting system, because the government on multi-year contracts are looking at your invoices to be formatted in a certain way, meaning they want you to be able to capture that month activity, that year to date amount, as well as the overall date. And if that invoice is not correct, they kick it back. And that means the clock starts ticking all over again. And I had to learn that the hard way. That's when I got out of the accounting business. So for me, it's important that we understand what we're getting into. I don't want you to get in a position and you've signed off on something that you're not necessarily able to finance. I'd rather for all of you all to go ahead and start those conversations now, before you even get anything. If you go on the website, and you can listen to Stacey Mollison's Transitioning from Real Estate to Government Contracts, how she repeatedly talks about how she began establishing credit. It wasn't with a bank, it was with a credit card. So you have to take baby steps to begin to build up your finance, because you cannot make any money without spending money. That is true.
Correct. Ms. Paula, one more thing before we leave this Prompt Payment Act. I love how you say we don't know what we don't know. And if you don't know that you've submitted an invoice and your contract specialist, or whoever, not contract specialist, because that's not the one that processes the payment, but the accounting division, or your payment is just sitting there, and you know you've done everything wrong, and you know that it's their problem why the agency haven't paid you, don't forget to go back. Now you are entitled to 1% more of the amount approved and unpaid to you on that contract.
Mhm.
So, you know, that's more money out there, but if you
Yeah.
don't ask for it, you don't get it.
And I realize, for me, a lot of the people on the other side is processing those invoices. They understand and they try to get your money as quickly as possible. In my experience, I rarely had any invoices that went over 45 days. But I was also factoring too. So I don't want people to get into that factoring cycle. And sometimes I know that's what you have to do what you have to do. But it's important that we get our personal credit and business credit and lines of credit before we start putting ourselves out there, if that makes sense for anyone.
Yes. Another option that a person can consider, and I don't know, Ms. Paula, we're still going to go into some additional, I'm looking at the time, about novation.
Correct. Go ahead. Yes,
Go
that's
ahead.
the factoring yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I'd like everyone to keep in mind, and this doesn't just go with 8A, but when you are novating any federal contract, it has to be approved prior to being done.
Can you elaborate? Most people don't know what novation means. I didn't when I had to do it. So can you break it down in layman's language? What does novation mean?
So there are two ways that people would think of a contract being given to somebody else. One is the assignment of the claims, and the other is novate. So under the novate, the contract is ended and someone else take over the contract. Where the other, the contractor is still responsible. They are not relieved until the contract is completed, but another contractor coming in to complete it. That's the difference.
Did y'all catch that? Anybody have any questions with that?
I heard it, but I didn't really absorb it.
Okay, so let's a novation could be where you got a change in the ownership. Say I'm novating my contract to Paula, who's taking over. So they're looking at now who's controlling in government. Clarity is no changes has taken place. And if I sell my contract to Paula, there is a change that took place. I sold my work. Mm-hmm. So now she owns my contract. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm getting it approved. Mm-hmm. So if I novate it to her, the government ends it. Take me out and assign it to her. Mm-hmm. If I do an assignment of claims, I just assigned Paula to, or the government just assigned with my authorization, Ms. Paula to do the job, but I'm still responsible until she completes it. Those are the assignment. It's two different ones you got.
So when you're factoring, are they using the assignment or a novation?
They're using the assignment in that case when you're factoring. Because the factoring company not doing the work, right? And their name is not on the contract.
Yes, but they're doing,
go ahead.
But they're doing the collection. I just remember having to sign my contracts over to that factoring company, and they were the ones that was calling the agency, and that kind of became awkward because the agency knew we were using them, but they were harassing them for their money.
So the factoring company was collecting what? This is the key. What were they collecting?
The receivables.
Right. So they weren't performing. They just collecting the money.
Correct.
So that wasn't performance. So all you did was assign the money, the claims, the money, the financing to the factoring company.
Okay, gotcha.
Where on the
gotcha.
other side, the other way,
It's ownership.
correct. There you got it now. Mhm.
Did y'all get that as I'm figuring it out myself too?
Somewhat.
Just remember, novation is it ends, new person take over, you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that. I got the novation and the assignment. That was
Okay.
that was pretty clear, but it was like how the factoring company was going after the payments and how that blew back on you.
Because you assigned it to that factoring company. That's why you don't get released. Because you're still in there, because you assigned it to the factoring company to collect all the money. So now the government is looking for the factoring company to do what's supposed to be done. But if they don't, who they coming for? You.
Okay. So it sounds like I shouldn't mess with factoring companies too much if I don't absolutely have to.
Yeah, I don't encourage that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Correct.
I have a question.
Yes. Who has a question?
Okay, so I'm sorry.
Introduce
that's
yourself to the
Monica.
community.
So
You're going
what's
in.
that?
You're going in and out. Introduce yourself to the community before you ask a question.
Oh, hi, I'm Monica. I'm Monica Landrum, and I did the November cohort, and I am new to this and currently seeking a contract right now. So this factoring is very interesting. It's something that I need to know. And I'd considered it, but I hadn't gotten that far yet. My question about that is, do I have to sign the whole contract over to the factoring company, or
yes, ma'am.
could they just be, oh, okay, it's all or none, it's all or nothing?
That is correct.
I want to read something to you all. I just pulled up, and I'm reading this from SBA. What is SBA contract novation? Procurement regulations and government contract novation law do not allow you to sell government contracts, which includes any 8A or any of SBA's contracts. And that's basically what you're doing when you novate it. You actually, in your own way, sold it to somebody else so that you will have the money, to complete it in a sense.
Yeah, my novation came, if I'm recalling, is at the end of the business. I had to formally transfer my contracts to a new 8A firm, and those were the ones that were novated. But I'm glad you clarified the assignments and the novation, because I was always confused with the two. So that makes sense to me now.
And also you novating those contracts over the agencies awarding them to a new firm, that kept you in kind of having a good taste in that because they wasn't now not able to continue to perform. They just actually gave it to another 8A contractor. So that's what I would do as the BOS. That's where I would come in to try to convince that agency, come on, it's a developmental program. The company didn't know this is what was going to happen. They couldn't foresee that. So let's try to work together so we don't let this business go out of business. And let's just give you another contract, and let's do a novation, or let's do a T for C.
Which is term for convenience and term for default. Convenience meaning that's not really bad. How do agencies look at T for C? I know T for D, you're out.
Yeah. So a T for C is for the convenience of the agency. And that convenience could be whatever they deem is convenient. And it looks good on you. As opposed to a T for D, it gives you another opportunity. So I guess that's basically all you need to really know about a convenience. It's in your favor and it's in their favor. All you need to really do is to prove to them those areas and reasons that you are asking for it. Why you're asking them for that T for C. Again, that's what your BOS is there for, to be your advocate.
Or the PCR.
Or the PCR.
PCR. And for me, I had it on both ways. I like to say I can start a business up and shut it down properly, because in my first business, that first contract I had, I was a subcontractor, and the prime contractor went out of business. And she had $200,000 of our money in her business. The government wouldn't talk to us. I lost $200,000. So it's understanding these relationships. It's just not just the contracts. So when I had to close it down, I knew I needed to allow the government enough time to be able to transfer those contracts so I would not disrupt service. So that was in my favor. We have one more question, and I'm gonna shut it down. Can I get one more question and we're gonna close it out? Anybody? Was this good for you guys?
Yes, it was very good.
Yes.
Can I get
very good. Thank you.
Can I get 3 takeaways? I know I like my takeaways.
Make sure that if you are an 8A business, if you're getting something under the 8A, you have your business development specialist, that the government is a prime, you are a sub. Any changes that you need to make to the contract terms and conditions need to be approved by the SBA.
Anything that you do in the 8A program needs to be approved by SBA. We own you for 9 years. And anybody else? Takeaway.
I think a takeaway is to start on your business credit immediately, like as soon as possible, to start building your business credit as soon as you have a thought of getting into government contracting. That way you'll have cash available, and also as you teach, to go ahead and start having relationships with local banks.
And again, you can always negotiate with your subcontractor if you're using one. But start this relationship now. Can I get one more? Takeaway.
Read your FARs.
Read the FAR.
Read the FAR, understand what you're getting into, understand what they can and cannot do, knowing the limitations that they can put on you that can cause you damage, and show them how you can help them get out of that when they try it.
I love it. I love it.
It will cost you a lot of money not being familiar with the FAR, because you will have to fight your case when it comes to the federal government. And you know, even if you didn't know, they're not going to hear, "Oh, I did not know." Because they tell you when you get in the program, when you sign off on any of these programs, it's your responsibility to become familiar with the regulations. And one thing I want to just reiterate over and over and over, Google is your best friend, baby. Just go on and just put in there, you know, what's the rules, SBA's rules regarding novation? You know, what's the new subcontract rules? What is Prompt Payment Act? What do I do if it's all there for you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a nice note to close on, Tansy. And I think this closes it for tonight. Hopefully you guys got something out of this. Not wanting to scare you, wanting you to just be aware. Don't let it stop. Keep going, but make sure you have things in alignment. All right? And it's good seeing everybody from the last year and this year. That's why I opened it up for everyone. So great to see some of the old faces as well as the current faces. Y'all have a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula. Thanks, Tansy.
Thank you.
All right. Victoria, you had a question?
No, it got answered. I was just asking about the novation, but it got answered. Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Good night.